road trip. Well, we're collecting stories about people, places, things, and events from all across America. We hope you'll stick around because the stories we have for you today are very, very special, and I think you'll find pretty entertaining. So stick around right after this break for more of the Out of the Norm Show, where the stories all about you.
The Out of the Norm Show is brought to you through the generosity of our partners in progress. Northwest Arkansas Community College, the College at the Crossing, Bella Vista Center, NV Salon, specializing in cuts and color in Fayetteville, A.G. Russell Knives in Rogers, the Bank of Gravette, caretakers of the Arkansas spirit, the Tuscan Trotter American Brasserie, just off the square in downtown Bentonville, Discount Smokes and Liquors at the state line in Jane, Missouri, Hoffman Realty in Bella Vista. It's the Out of the Norm Show. Stories about people, places, things, and events from all across the great country of America. The Out of the Norm Show, where the stories are all about you.
Hi, welcome to another version of the Out of the Norm Show. We're certainly glad you've joined us today because we're in one of those rare miracle August hot Thursday afternoons with Mr. Ronald Holloman, who is the director of the Northeast Texas Film Commission. Did I get all that right, Ron?
You got it.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show and showing us around Jefferson. This is a very unique small town in East Texas that unless you know why to come here, you'll probably just pass right by.
That's right.
But it hasn't always been that way, has it?
No, Jefferson has been around 2,000 people probably for the last 150 years, or a little over 100 years. It started to decline. 1870 was its heyday. It was a decline from there, and at one time I think Jefferson was probably around 30,000 people, and that was people coming and going, and commerce, and people heading west.
Now, why is Jefferson the stopping off point, though? There's a reason for that.
Well, other than coming into the Northeast, probably up around New York and along the Atlantic Ocean, other entries into the United States from European immigrants came into Mobile, they came into Florida, St. Petersburg, and they also came into New Orleans, and they wanted to find routes inland, and they found their ways up all the many rivers that fed into the Mississippi. One of the far west routes was coming up the Red River, and then at Shreveport making a left and coming up the Big Cypress River, and the big boats actually came here with immigrants and everybody going somewhere from here.
So this was a big steamship town on the Big Cypress River.
Very big. It was this port was second only to Galveston, Texas, and an amount of tonnage moved. Goods moved, and so Galveston is on the coast, so I would say that that's a pretty big thing to hold up on that end of it. Being
but the river is no longer the river now. It's a little different thing, isn't it?
It's
believe we're getting rained on?
I know. This is the first time this year, I think. Yeah, you might say that it's controlled by a dam. Our watershed goes up, Lake of the Pines stops it. So normally, if it hadn't been for the dam, we'd be having a lot more water here. But, occasionally water does get very high here. We're standing in the mid-1800s. We would definitely be probably underwater right now. So
and there were big wharfs and docks all along the river. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that and the ships that came up here.
That's right. There were hundreds and hundreds of ships that made many trips. A lot of goods that ended up in many of the areas around here, came from Europe, fineries. Things coming from Europe with immigrants came up the river from New Orleans, and the things that went back downstream was cotton, hemp for ropes. It was everything from pickled beef. They had some packeries up here that a lot of the people from West Texas would drive their cattle here. They'd slaughter them, and they would go back down. So Jefferson was very much a center of commerce in the mid-1800s. Well, the heyday, 1870, was the pinnacle, but it flattened off from there. But yeah, this is a lot of things are buried out here. I mean, a lot of people, I'm not from here. I'm trying to tell the story because I love it so much.
Well, it's also part of Texas history, not only just about Jefferson, but it's about part of the westward scrape that became civilized Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it started right here, but it wasn't always civilized in Jefferson either, was it?
No, this was a riverboat town. It was had everything from diamond merchants. You had every creed, color, religious background. It was deals were made. There you had the very best and you had the very worst of people. You know, where this much commerce takes place. And so Dallas was just this little place on the prairie out there, and it was actually Fort Worth, a fort. They brought all their things here to go to Europe. So you wouldn't know it by looking at it now, but Jefferson has an unbelievable history to it.
Well, I think we're going to see some of that history today, and we're going to walk the streets of Jefferson, go into the old Excelsior Hotel, visit the Jefferson Historical Museum, and see some interesting things there. So. Also, Jay Gould, we're going to talk about him later.
We're glad to have you.
Well, we're glad to be here. Glad to be in Jefferson, Texas, home of the Jefferson Bulldogs, just in case you're football fans. Of course, I can say that with a little bit of...
high school football's big.
It's a religion in East Texas.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take off and head on into downtown, so without taking a break, just follow us. We got a walk to go.
Y'all come on.
Yeah.
As far as I know, we're outside the Excelsior house. This is a remnant of an old gas system, but the oddity of it is this is not natural gas. It's my understanding this is the first in Texas of a municipal city working out a problem or working to a solution to light the streets at night. This gas was manufactured from pine knots gathered from the forest and the woods in around Jefferson here, and they would take the pine knots, split them and to splinters and everything in big chunks, and they would heat them up in this big cauldron that was under pressure, and they would build a fire under it with escaping gas from it not being ignited but being hot enough to turn into a gas. Throughout the city, the pressure would build up in this large area. This is made out of cast iron. This is the stem that would go up much higher. It's cut off right there, and they would actually go around, had a lamp lighter that would light the lamps every afternoon when it got dark. But this is not natural gas. This is pine knots that were burned for lighting at night. In the mid-1800s, there were several railroads were starting to branch out after the Civil War. Jay Gould was considered one of about 5 railroad barons. They were considered ruthless, but they were able to get railroads to fan out from the northeast and to pretty much settle the West. However, said that, Jay Gould was the Texas and Pacific was his railroad, and they were gobbling up territory. And they were leaving the east side of the Mississippi, and they were coming west. And through this area here, they wanted to come through Jefferson, but Jefferson was loyal to the steamboats, which followed the Big Cypress to the Red, through Caddo Lake, down to New Orleans. So basically this was really a steamboat town. Most towns are railroad towns. So they remained loyal, and so there was a conflict with them not really working with Jay Gould. So he really wasn't happy with Jefferson, you know, in the mid-1800s. So he supposedly, you hear things about he wanted to curse his town because they really wouldn't buy into his idea of the railroad. So this is his railroad car, brought here, and behind me, as we go through the narrow, as all railroad cars are, the narrow passage, it was difficult passing somebody, so you had to turn sideways and squeeze past them if you met somebody. But you can see the opulence. This is 1870s and even earlier, so it has a lot of things. The woodwork in here, as you can see, is absolutely beautiful. All of this was restored. It was cleaned. It had people come in and really make sure that the wood was treated so that it would have tenure for many years to come. A lot of things were missing from here. A lot of things were brought back to it, located from Jay Gould's family, and we've got a galley down there. We've got several nooks and crannies where you have the very nice sitting areas where people would while away the day and read newspapers of the day. And up above them they have berths that pull down, and you can see those. And so it would sleep people up above in the berth and then down below. Go a little further, you go around a little hook there, and you'll see the galley. And the galley had a wood stove or coal stove. They cooked all the meals there. It's a small galley, much like you would find on a ship. And that's where all the meals were prepared. And you go a little bit further on down, and you'll run into the card room or cigar room. And this is where deals were made and decisions were made that actually affected the journey west. Him buying up Jay Gould and Texas and Pacific Railroad buying up property and land and giving leases and people buying stock. I wished I had that.
Oh, yeah.
I would put that in a room and I would use it. You wouldn't have to build big fires. It's just good heavy metal. It would radiate heat. You could heat a lot of stuff. We're in the basement of the Jefferson Museum in Jefferson, and this one segment here has to do with the frontier. Jefferson was a jumping off place for steamboats. People cashed in their chips, bought wagons, plows, seeds, and livestock to go west. Some got as far as Dallas, some went up to Oklahoma, some went all the way to California. There was a man called G.A. Kelly who had a foundry not just a few miles to the west of us, and he would take iron ore that's very prevalent in the area. And what he would do is he had these huge bellows, and he created a cauldron that melted down the rock, and he got from the slag and ended up with, you might say, a metal that was very primitive, but it was cast iron. So out of that, he was able to make sand molds, and he was able to make a plow blade, and he developed the plow itself, and it was even today, the Kelly plow is a piece of history. If you can find one, they're worth a lot of money. It's called the Kelly Blue Plow. And as we're looking over here are several examples. They go back as far as 1840. And the Kelly plow going west is very important because it allowed settlers coming in to New Orleans up to Jefferson going west toward California. It allowed them to put a crop in the ground out toward Dallas and as far as they wanted to go. So they usually, with one horse or a mule or a team, they could get a crop in the ground. Cast iron was used for not just plows, but it was also used for cast iron stoves that they were able to fashion, and they were advertised. You can find advertising now in old newspapers and things that you can find, but they did that, and bells, anything that had to do with the foundry and molding, using sand mold, they pretty much did, and people went west with whatever was manufactured there.
just built a well for, and we're here celebrating together. I've never seen something like this in my life. It's amazing.
Can you imagine your life without clean water? We may take clean water for granted, but 1 billion people in developing nations suffer from the clean water crisis each day. They don't have clean water to drink or to bathe in. What if your clean water was suddenly gone? Generosity Water can turn $10 into 20 years of clean water for one person. Help us change the world. GenerosityWater.org.
A visit to historic downtown Jefferson, Texas wouldn't be complete without a visit and a little tour of the Excelsior Hotel, one of the most beautiful little quaint hotels that you'll find along the frontier life of Texas back in the 1800s. This is Miss Mary Fredrickson. She's in guest relations here at the Excelsior, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us a little bit about this grand old hotel.
Well, you're welcome. We appreciate you taking the time to come and look at our hotel.
Well, how did it all come about? You think about this because now the river is not being used for any commerce other than tourism, but it was a different day when the Excelsior came into being, wasn't it?
That's correct. That's correct. How this hotel started was actually as a private home of a riverboat captain, Captain William Perry. He was from New Hampshire. He was a civil engineer, and he did a lot of business down here in the South, up and down the Red River and through the Mississippi into New Orleans. And so he had a contract with Jefferson to keep the waterways free and clear, and he brought the riverboat to Jefferson. So hence that added a lot to our business at that time.
Sure.
And so after he introduced the steamboat, there were over 450 coming through per year.
Wow.
So as a thank you from the city, he got a tract of land to do whatever he wanted to, and that was in 1846, 2 years after he brought that steamboat here. And so in 1858, he finally decided to do something with it, and he built what is now our historic wing.
Wow.
Of the hotel.
So in the year that Texas regrettably became a state rather than state of republic, put our little digs in there.
Right.
By the way, I'm not sure he's kin to a Richard Perry or not either, do you?
No.
Beside the point. Anyway, so Captain Perry has built this place for his home.
Yes.
And now it's become a hotel. When did that happen?
Very quickly after he moved in. I'm within maybe 5-6 years.
Okay.
Within 5 to 10 years, definitely. And so the portion of the hotel that you come into is actually not the original house. Okay. It was an addition that started to come to fruition about 1871. And that was because there were so many people in this town, needed more places for people to stay. And so that's what started the
So the youngest part of the building was built in the 1870s?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you walk through the front door, and I notice the doors are very narrow when you come through the front door. That's pretty obvious. What is that about?
You know, I've often wondered myself. Every day I come to work, I don't get there's not a day that I don't get a chuckle out of it. I've often wondered, you know, those big ladies with the big antebellum dresses and things of that. Yeah. Well, you know, and luckily there's 2 doors there because you know those ladies had to get those 2 doors open to bring those big hoop skirts through.
Looking for the grand entrance.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Now you have a display in your lobby that has some interesting artifacts in it. Tell me a little bit about those.
Well, those are really neat. Those are some of the treasured items here, among many of the treasured items here at the Excelsior House. There are original registers, and some of the signatures in those registers are President Lyndon B. Johnson and Lady Bird Johnson, first Bird.
We're going to get back to her in just a little bit.
Okay, right. And then there's also President Grant and President Hayes stayed here. And then, of course, the infamous railroad baron Jay Gould stayed here also.
Now, Jay Gould has quite a dramatic history in Jefferson, Texas, doesn't he?
He does. He does.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's a very long story, but the nutshell of it is that he came through here in 1881, I believe, and he was looking to get some land to bring his railroad through. And because, of course, at the time, Jefferson was operating mainly off the water. And he didn't get the land that he asked for. And so he left Jefferson and was not very happy at the time. And so he left a curse on Jefferson that unfortunately never came to play. But
he also left his railroad car here.
yeah, well, that's another. Yeah, his railroad car was found 85 years later in a weed patch in Overton, Texas.
Wow.
After it had been taken off of the railroad. It was used as a house by a yardmaster in Overton during the East Texas oil boom in the 30s to house his family, and he used it for 13 years.
Wow, and then it was moved back here.
Yes, and so he's not happy about that.
The railroad did come in his
It did.
private car.
Yeah.
As we go through the hotel today, what are we going to see? How many rooms do you have here?
There are 15. There are now 8 on the side that Captain Perry built. There's 4 on the downstairs level, there's 4 on the upstairs level, and then there are 7 more rooms in what we call the West Wing, which are all upstairs.
And those are upstairs.
That's correct.
Now, also, it's not really authentic furnishings, but it's a lot of antiques and things of period pieces that are
That's correct. There are some original authentic pieces. Many of them are, and then some of them we've been fortunate enough to have donated through the years.
But at the same time, if you stay here, even though it's an 1870s hotel, there's still full modern amenities.
Correct.
You have TV.
Yeah, that's a common question for many people.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
If we have, if you're keeping up with basketball, you can watch March Madness, things like that.
And Wi-Fi. And all
right.
that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
An 1870s hotel with Wi-Fi.
Right.
Wow, we're going through 2 centuries almost,
Right.
aren't we?
Right.
Wow. So if we go down the hallway, we're going to find those 7 rooms, and that was part of the original house, though, right?
Well, actually, if we go down the historic wing, that's where the 8 rooms are now.
8 rooms, okay.
Yeah, and the downstairs level will have 4, and the upstairs level will have 4.
Okay, and what kind of things will we see in those rooms?
Different things. You'll see rooms accommodated with curio cabinets, and you'll see rooms accommodated with armoires. You'll see rooms accommodated with big, beautiful beds and canopies as well. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm taking a look at those right
Yeah.
now. So it really is nice staying
Yes.
here. Now upstairs, that's 7 more rooms. You said, right?
In the West Wing. Yes.
In the West Wing, 7 more rooms, and one of those rooms is very special. The Lady Bird Johnson room.
That is actually upstairs in the historic wing.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, that's a really special room to this hotel. All of them are, but in particular, Lady Bird Johnson was a native of this area. She was from Karnak, and she went to school in Jefferson as a child. And so she lived here in town for a while and went to grammar school. And there was a call from the Garden Club during restoration from 1961 to 1963, and we needed some furnishings for the hotel. But by then, she had already pretty much adopted that room, so she gladly obliged and sent some personal ornamental fixtures of her own to donate to the room. So there's a clock in there that was her mother and father's. It was a gift from her mother to her father for an anniversary gift. That is on that mantle. There were some pink, very fancy lamps that are also in that room as well. And that was her room. So if anybody ever called on the day that Lady Bird was checking in and wanted that room, they couldn't have it. That was her room.
Wow.
And there would be some days that she would come and check in, and she would be late, and we just know that she's coming, and she'd check herself in at night. She knew where the key was.
She knew.
She knew where the key was, so she'd check herself in.
Wow, what a beautiful room. What a neat room it is. But anybody can stay there too now.
Yes,
can't they?
yes,
Sure.
and it's a very popular room.
Now, when are you open? And you have 15 rooms, but when are you open? Are you open year-round?
We are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's somebody manning our desk from the very beginning, from the time that Captain Perry was there to very quickly that it became a hotel. There has been somebody here nonstop for 153 years.
Wow. And you've got the latest shift.
Yes, I sure do. I sure
Now,
do.
the hotel doesn't have its own restaurant,
It does not.
but you do a lot of special events here.
Yes.
Let's talk about what you do here now.
Well, what we do now is, of course, we do our morning breakfast, which is
You call it a plantation breakfast.
That's correct. That's correct. A full plantation-style Southern meal, and it's very good. And then we also do a lot of weddings here too, and it's such a natural, beautiful.
For pictures.
Yeah, for pictures, and it's just really beautiful. We do a lot of weddings here.
Now, one thing I did find interesting too, that the hotel is not a foundation, it's not city-owned, but tell me about the ownership and management.
Yeah, that's a really neat story. The Jesse Allen Wise Garden Club, which came into existence, their inaugural year was in 1939, and it was named after Jesse Allen Wise a year after her passing. And at the time, when the Garden Club purchased this hotel in 1961, there were only about 25 members, and so they were the people that saved this hotel from being knocked down. it was on the state's demolition list. And so just in April of this year, in this very ballroom where we stand, they celebrated their 50th year of ownership.
Oh, that's great. So it's going to be a place that's going to be open for years to come for people to enjoy.
Yes.
Plug back into the heritage.
Yes, yes.
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time and showing us around the Excelsior Hotel. It's a fabulous place, and I know it's special not just in the hearts of Jeffersonians, but it's in the heart of Texas because it's a piece of our whole state heritage as well, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Thanks. Hey, we're moving on. We're going to go take a look around at some other things here in historic Jefferson. So please, don't you dare go away, because the Out of the Norm show will be right back after a quick break. In the meantime, don't forget, stories all about you.
When you've got an extreme thirst, you know there's only one thing to reach for. A can of Splode. With 100 times the carbonation of ordinary soft drinks, Splode is intense. So if you think you can handle the pressure, grab a Splode and obliterate your thirst.
Can you imagine your life without clean water? We may take clean water for granted, but 1 billion people in developing nations suffer from the clean water crisis each day. They don't have clean water to drink or to bathe in. What if your clean water was suddenly gone? Generosity Water can turn $10 into 20 years of clean water for one person. Help us change the world. GenerosityWater.org.
I joined the National Guard and never thought I'd be saving lives.
It's more than money for college. It's built my character and given me a sense of accomplishment. Now I'm on a career path and I'm the leader of my team.
I put on the uniform and I have a whole new outlook on life. Country, community, family. That's what matters most to me. If that matters to you, go to 1-800-GO-GUARD.com.
I guess we're fighting over this?
No, he wants some. What do you want? You want a
Here, you want some?
Root beer float? No, you
want a root beer float?
Here. No, you can't. Here. No.
Thank you. These are good.
Stewie. Hey, listen, we've been having so much fun today here in beautiful downtown historic Jefferson. I want to thank Ron Holloman. He's got his mouth full of what's it called now? It's called a moody dog. I think it's going to change his mood forever, right? And sharing with us a little bit about what's going on in downtown historic Jefferson. This is my friend Rick Vadrine from Austin, and he's actually nobody. He's just kind of hanging out with me and running around. But
root beer floats.
Root beer floats, that's a whole reason to come to Jefferson.
Right, exactly.
Isn't this a fascinating little town?
I loved it. I loved every minute being here. The Excelsior Hotel was amazing, getting to see down along the river, you know, and the Gould rail car was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was a really nice time.
But as many times as people drive up and down Highway 59 from Houston going north, and they come within just a few miles of here, but they never know to turn off.
Turn off. I'm telling you, turn off.
Yeah,
wonderful place.
To stop. Yeah, the place we're in right now is a really cool place called the Jefferson General Store. And I think I got that right, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let me tell you, they have everything here you could ever look for. And it's not just tourist stuff. There's cool stuff like the Elf on the Shelf Christmas traditions. You'll see Bluebell ice cream. There's all kinds of cool signs around and a lot of memorabilia and history. And I don't know, it's just one of those kind of places you want to sit down and have a root beer float with. And I'm going to do that in just a few minutes.
Your mouth's watering. You want some of this, don't you?
I'm really getting...
No, this is mine. They're getting yours.
Hey, listen, we want to thank you. Oh, thank you very much. All right, now that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, my goodness.
Famous for pralines, too. I got a... Man, we're just going to do a whole club here.
Oh, thank you.
A couple of towns. Hey, listen, I want to thank you for being a part of the Out of the Norm show today. It's been a pleasure to visit with you and also to bring you to Jefferson, Texas. I hope you saw enough to... intrigue you and make you want to stop by here if you're passing through Northeast Texas. It's definitely a place to see. That's preserving history, preserving the American way, and has such a flair for campy creativity. And you'll find it all right here at historic downtown Jefferson. In the meantime, I'm going to have me a nice root beer float. We're going to have down like a snack here. Some of these pralines.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bon appetit.
To Jefferson, Texas.
We didn't bump his moody dog.
Well, he's got a Coke.
We'll see you again soon on the Out of the Norm show where the stories all about you.
Ooh, enjoy that root beer float.
Like loving the South and me just loving you. the South and me just